Hey, good afternoon. Scott Luton here with you on Veteran Voices. Welcome to today's episode. You are in for a very special treat, maybe selfishly, but I've got two of my dear colleagues and friends from my days when I served in active duty with the United States Air Force. And I'm afforded the opportunity to rekindle that relationship and catch up with them for the first time in years here via our podcast. So, thanks for joining us and really looking forward to this conversation. Promises to be an intriguing conversation, at least for one of us, at least for me, maybe. Um, Quick programming note before we get started here. Hey, this program is part of the Supply Chain Now family of programming. You can find Veteran Voices anywhere you get your podcast from. And it's produced in conjunction with our friends at Vets to Industry. It's a fantastic nonprofit that's helping veterans find their own way in an ever-challenging transition. You can learn more at vets2industry.com. All right, with no further ado, I want to bring in my two featured guests here tonight. It is Troy Boozer and Bruce Gillen. Good evening to you both.
Good evening, Scott.
Man, I tell y'all, I've been looking forward to this ever since I thought I might have had both of you confirmed. Had to work through your agents and your press teams, and that's okay. We're used to doing that. But I'm really excited about the conversation, just the opportunity to catch up with two people that were instrumental during my time in uniform for sure. So, all right, so let's get started, and I'll start with you, Troy. Tell us, I know a good bit about you both, but for the sake of our audience and them kind of getting a sense of who you are, Troy, tell us where you're from and give us an anecdote or two about your upbringing.
Well, I was born and raised in Fayetteville, North Carolina, military town. You had the Army and the Air Force. The Pope Air Force Base is closed since then, but had the Army and the Air Force there, so I was used to seeing military. My father was in the Air Force for a little bit. So I grew up there, played a lot of sports, pretty much played every sport. Just that's something, that was big in our family. So I don't know if I have any cool anecdotes, Scott.
Beyond playing sports growing up, what was one thing on the weekends that it wasn't a weekend unless you got to do it?
Yeah, so I've been married 23 years, and that might get me in trouble if I answer
that. Well, you were a huge athlete when we worked together for a couple of years, and maybe we'll touch on some of those teams that we played on where you were the MVP, and I was lucky to get in on the action on one play here, one play there. But so let's before we circle back on what made you join the military, Bruce, I'll come over to you. Tell us, where you grew up, and give us a couple of anecdotes about your upbringing.
Well, kind of like Troy. My dad was Air Force, and we followed him around. Born in Colorado Springs, he within about 4 years got stationed up at Eielson up in Fairbanks, about 22 miles out of Fairbanks. So a lot of my time growing up was spent outdoors with my little brother. We'd go out and just run the woods day in, day out, and every day. And it was a happy, simple time. But
so did you build forts? You build forts. You had dirt bomb wars. What'd you do outside? What was the go-to?
Yeah, we did have dirt bomb wars because they always, whenever they hit, that you could tell because it poofed on them.
Right.
But yeah, we played GI Joe. The funny thing is, back then we had F4s flying overhead. I was used to growing up with military surroundings, but we always played Army. The Bionic Man. If you remember that.
Well, Troy, for your lack of anecdotes, we got plenty from Bruce. So I love that. So much to ask y'all about, so little time. All right. So Troy, tell us, circling back to you, clearly military, it sounds like it ran in your family, but why did you join the military?
Man, I'll be honest with you, I had a wife and a daughter to take care of. And I knew I'd be able to learn a trade or some type of skill while I'm getting paid to do it. I would get some benefits, for school and stuff like that because I wanted to. Because I played college basketball for a year, and then left school after that year. But I wanted to finish my degree, and I knew I'd be able to do that in the service. So being able to take care of the family was the primary thing. And I I do remember now. I don't want to make any of the veterans upset, but I'll tell the story anyway. Okay.
Okay.
So where the recruiting station where I went, the Air Force was like all the way in the back. So when you walk through the door, you have 4 offices, and the Air Force was all the way in the back. And I already knew I wanted to join the Air Force. So when I come through the door, first guy that comes out is the Army guy. He says, "Hey, you here to join the Army?" I said, "No." Came to talk to the Air Force, and they said, "Okay, if you ever change your mind, there's a place for you in the Army." I said, "Okay, I appreciate that." Next is the Navy. So the Navy guy comes out, and same spiel, and I'm like, no, not real fond of being on boats and stuff like that. So he talked to the Air Force guy, and his thing was, "Hey, if you change your mind, you know where to find us." So I get to the third office, and the Marine guy is already standing outside, and he starts to approach me, and I'm like, "Man, you must be crazy." I just kept walking past him. I apologize to all my Marine buddies and stuff like that, but I already knew that the Marine life was not for me.
You couldn't
So
even make eye contact with. You had to
no,
keep on going.
I had to keep moving.
Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember. Sergeant Fox was my recruiter, and boy, if we had a video recorder of the stories I heard and how good life was going to be.
Yeah.
But,
Oh,
hey,
yeah.
that's always running gag, and the men and women that recruit, they've got a tough job to do, so they do a great job. All right, so Bruce, you mentioned your father served. I'd forgotten that, but why'd you join the Air Force?
Oh, you cut out there for a second. Was
Oh,
that
I'm
to me?
sorry. Well, yeah. Why'd
Oh,
you
sorry.
join the military, Bruce?
Okay. Actually, I'm not as well put together as Troy was, responsible and having people take care of, thinking of college and whatnot. My story is my brother was going into the Air Force. It's like, well, I'll tag along with you. He said, well, go ahead, take the ASVAB test. So I took the ASVAB. He goes, oh, okay. So after that, he said, well, let's go to the recruiter. It's like, sure, I got nothing else to do. I mean, I was halfway through my senior year in high school, and so I followed my older brother. Is what I did. If he went to the Marines, I would have been a Marine.
Wow.
But I'm thankful he didn't. He went to the Air Force, and I followed him. The recruiter, old Dracopoulos was my recruiter's name, and he said, "You guys go in the buddy system. The two of you stay together, for at least the first 4 to 6 years." I was like, "That's awesome." So we went in. He went in before Thanksgiving. I went in the following March of '83, and they sent them to Arizona, and they sent me to Alaska. They both start and end with an A. That's the closest we came for a long time.
Hey, but the buddy system, together all the way, just about 4,000 miles in between or something, right?
Yeah.
Close enough.
The remote buddy system.
Right. You didn't read the ultra fine 2mm print on that buddy system program, maybe.
Yeah.
So let's talk about. So we all worked together. I think during my full 2 years, we were all together there at McConnell Air Force Base. But both of y'all had certainly careers before I came on station, and certainly long after. Let's start with you, Bruce. What did you, when you joined the Air Force, what was your AFAC? Because I think you transitioned into where we worked together, didn't you?
Oh no! Actually, I was a 391. I stayed a 391 the entire time. Well, actually, when I first went in, it was a 391. Then we transitioned to a 2RO. It was the same career. They just changed the AFSC on us. But yeah, that was. We had just left Alaska in '99. Andre and I did, and we showed up at McConnell. But that was an awesome office. I really have to say it was. That was one of the best group of people that I had the privilege of working with. you guys were hilarious. Mostly watching you two go at it was entertaining for me. And when we get to the anecdotes, there's a couple of them I wanted to bring back up.
That's good. That's to be expected. But just to clarify for folks that may not know, so McConnell Air Force Base, Kansas is in Wichita, right? And what Bruce was just saying, I guess 391 was before they reclassified the AFSCs. So you were basically a lifetime data analyst then, Bruce. Is that right, in Air Force?
Yes. I went in 3 years into it. I said, I got to cross train. I got to get out of this. And the funny thing is, there's only certain times you could apply. And every time I applied for it, they said, your AFSC is in a shortage for your rank, so you got to stay. So after 17 years of fighting it, I decided to say, you know what, I'm just going to stay an analyst. So I did.
And you retired an analyst then, right?
I retired an analyst right out of McConnell.
Awesome. All right. So Troy, what about you? Were you also a lifetime analyst? Where did you start your career?
Same thing. 2R from the beginning. Had no clue what it was. I remember when everybody was getting assignments and stuff like that when I was in basic training. My only thing was, because I went in open general, and everybody in my squadron was getting SP. Everybody was going, cops, and I'm like, just don't let it be an SP. So I opened up the envelope, and I saw 2RO, and I'm like, cool, it's not an SP. Saw maintenance data systems analyst. I'm like, what in the world is this? I went to my TI and I asked him about it. And he was a fuel cell guy. I asked him about it, and he's like, I don't have a clue. So I couldn't tell you. So I had no help whatsoever when it came to that. But yeah, I started out in the career field, and in my 8 years, I finished off after 8 years in that career field. So had a blast, good time.
Agreed. And back to Bruce's point, that was a family in that office. And
it was.
We all came from different walks of life. We're all kind of geared differently personality wise, but folks really enjoy being around each other. And if you think back, at least when I was there, for those 2 years, that's when 9/11 hit, which we're going to touch on here momentarily. And, when you needed, no one knew what was taking place. Everybody was angry. That was a tough time, and it was great to have kind of a family away from family. So speaking of which, some of those personalities, and please don't, when you answer this question, you can, from any of your stops, any of the offices you worked in, but Troy, I'll stick with you. Who are some of the folks that you loved, really enjoyed working with, whether you worked beside them, or they worked for you, or folks you may have worked for? Who are some of those people?
So obviously, Scott, you're one of them. Larry, when he was there, I think that was before Larry got out, before both of you guys got there. I did enjoy working with McCall, and I actually talked to him today.
Did you really?
Yeah, I talked to him today. I talked to Route yesterday. I talked to Wong last week.
Man.
I try to keep, up with people the best I can. But I tell everybody when we talk about the office and stuff like that, I tell them Bruce was my favorite person to work with. So much fun. I tell everybody that, because you're a lot of fun, man. You were pretty easygoing. You like to have a good time. I mean, everybody in there was kind of like that, but it's a little bit different with you. So I tell everybody Bruce is my favorite person to work with in that office. So,
well, thank you.
I think you remember those times going over to the AGS squadron and playing Gauntlet.
Yeah.
And playing arcades and stuff like that. We're supposed to be working. Over there playing Gauntlet.
So all right, you got to explain it. Do they have an arcade in the air-ground squadron?
Yeah, they had a couple of arcade games. You remember when they rebuilt the AGS squadron? But I used to tell Bruce, I said, look, if you get a folder and you walk like you have a sense of purpose, everybody's going to think you're working. They won't. You can do anything you want. You can go to the shop at. You can go to the commissary. You can do anything you want. As long as you have a folder in your hand, people are going to think you're working. So we used to go over to the AGS squadron, and they had the big box arcade games. And Gauntlet was actually a pretty fun game anyway. So, cat's out the bag. But every so often we sneak over there and go play Gauntlet for a little while. So, yeah. So Bruce was actually my favorite person to work with.
Throughout my time there, you never saw Bruce Gillen mad. Never hardly frustrated. I mean, you talk about as even keel and laid back as you can get, and that you need someone like that in offices. It even in the toughest days, it kind of lowers the pressure a little bit, and you could have sidebar conversations, and they were therapeutic. So, Bruce, you've got a bunch of fans in terms of your approach, but I want to go back to Troy for a minute because as he was just sharing a moment ago, as Troy checks in on folks, man, that is so you're always the captain of the team, and you're always looking out for your colleagues and your teammates, and that's why it doesn't surprise me. Now we're going to touch on what you're doing now, but shepherding your flock. I mean, that is so core to who you are, and that was really important as well during my time. So let's switch over, Bruce, and you tell us about some of your favorite colleagues through your time in the Air Force.
All right. And I don't want this to make it sound like some kind of mutual admiration club.
I can't have that.
Because it's not. But you guys were awesome. I was thinking of McCall, Wong. Who was the couple that got married? Prajedes.
Yeah.
Prajedes and I can't remember the girl's name. She
Trish.
was.
Her name was Trish. Yeah, Trish.
Okay, yeah. I mean, you guys were a fantastic group, and the good thing is everybody had a role in that family to play, and everybody did it well. Like you said, Troy was always the one looking out after everybody. He was the wisdom. He was the one that would, it's like, hey, if you got a fold in your hand and it looks like you're doing something, they're going to leave you alone. So we go over there and we play Gauntlet. As a matter of fact, I jacked up my left shoulder and it still hurts to this day playing Gauntlet over there.
That must have been a serious game of Gauntlet.
It was. I jacked my shoulder up bad. I don't know if I told you, but it went numb for a while. But and Scott, you guys were solid folks to work with. It was, everybody had each other's back, and that is so hard to find. I worked with a lot of good people, but I can't say that I had that relationship with them like I did with you guys. Where I knew we were there for each other, and we were there to do the mission, and we did it. And we did it well.
Agree. Yeah. Well said. Well said. One of my greatest regrets is not being there when Larry was in that office. Larry was one of the funniest and just the coolest people to be around on our weekend golf matches, Troy. And just a sense of humor, just a natural sense of humor, and some of the stories y'all shared about him. But Sergeant Daway, of course.
Absolutely.
Daway, yep.
Bennett, I'm sorry, Benner. My son's name is Bennett. But Ryan Benner, who I think recently retired. Yep.
Recently retired.
Sergeant, I believe.
Yeah.
Airman Kim. Man. If you remember Daniel Kim.
Yeah. Yeah, Kim. Yep.
And Terrence. What was Terrence's last name?
Goldsmith. I caught up to him probably about a month ago. I caught up to Goldsmith. Yeah, good guy.
Just a bunch of great guys, and of course, he's no longer with us. But Jeremy Cross, when I got on station, and was I'd already been in the Air Force once, but I had 4.5 years of your traditional college experience prior to that coming back in active duty, and from the time I set foot, he was basically guiding me, running me on the checklist, all the in processing y'all I'm sure you're well aware of, and just give me a lay of the land and in a way that only Jeremy Cross could do, and so incredible people to work with, special people. All right, so I want to ask you both, and both of y'all are modest, except when Troy's on the softball field or the basketball. I learned that. That's okay. He had more talent in his pinky than I've ever had through my church softball legendary days, and I use that term very loosely. But Troy, y'all, neither one of y'all talk about each other or yourselves a lot, but what's one accomplishment during your time in the Air Force that you really point to that you're real proud of and you'll be telling your kids and your grandkids about?
For me, that was pretty easy. It was gaining the respect of my peers. When I saw the question that you sent out, and I thought I was gonna have to think about it, for a little, but it was, for me, it was easy. When I got the respect of my peers, also when I got the respect of people that I worked for, that was, I did a lot of things while I was in the service, had some great opportunities. Like, I mean, right towards the end, I had an opportunity to fill a slot that was for a master sergeant, and I was a staff, and the job was mine. Unfortunately, people that were, in the squadron kind of killed that for me because they said we were losing too many people. But the commander at that, for that other job, he told me, after he had hired somebody, he had already kicked out the suspense date for my package to come in, and he couldn't wait any longer, so he hired a master sergeant. And when he and I talked, I told him what happened. He said, "Look, the job was yours. We were just waiting on the package to come in." And that would have been a great opportunity as the E5 filling the slot for an E7. But even with that, I had a lot of letters of recommendation from different chiefs, wing commanders, and all this kind of stuff. They spoke highly of me when I was putting together a package for OTS. But even with all that, gaining the respect of my peers was easily the biggest accomplishment.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you got that in spades for sure. You always knew if you're with Troy, you weren't going to be in trouble, whether that was a data disagreement or, whatever else stuff we did. So you certainly earned that in spades. All right, Bruce, especially for you who never, it was always about other people. Both y'all have that in spades. But Bruce, what was one thing you point to that you'll always be telling your kids and grandkids about?
Mine, I had a lot of great experiences. Probably the one that I remember the most actually is my retirement. Because my dad was there.
Yeah.
And well, he passed in 07, but he did 20. He did like 21, 22, but just like Troy said, it was, I could tell he was proud of me. And my mom, my wife, Andrea, was there. I had 4 kids at that time. I had you guys around me. It was the best, one of the highest points of my life was that retirement with you guys was my high point. And it just, I can't tell you how special that was. I mean, to see you guys there, I was surrounded by family. And sorry, I got choked up a little bit there.
No,
that's all right.
Both of y'all, I mean, there were fan clubs dedicated to both of you. I mean, y'all really were special, really special people, very special friends, big time advisors, excellent, really true, genuine people. And you cared for others. And I'll tell you, I was in a bad spot when I was assigned to Wichita. I was not going into it, but I was not in a good spot. And y'all two in particular, and of course Wong and Benner and Kim and that whole gang, Dawei and Sergeant Jake, all those folks, but y'all two in particular were there for me, and your big reasons because of that. I'm here today, because we all go through those tough times, and man, there's people you lean on, the foundation that gets you through. Yeah. Both of y'all, I always have a debt of gratitude to pay back based on just the abundance of friends and kindred spirits we had right here. So I appreciate what both of y'all are. And Bruce, you deserve, when did you retire, Bruce?
I retired April 1st, 03.
Okay.
April Fool's Day.
And let's let the audience in on a little secret here, because if you heard Bruce say he had 4 children at the time, how many do you have now, Bruce?
8.
Oh, wow.
I had 4 more after I retired out of the military.
Well, just a wonderful family. And let's go ahead and Troy, you were sharing some things about your family on the front end before we got started. It's unbelievable just how fast kids grow up, and your 2 daughters. Give us where are they at in their journey?
So my 2 daughters, the second week of December every year is birthday week. My daughters, their birthdays December 9th and December 10th. So my youngest one on December 9th, she turned 18. And my oldest one on December 10th turned 23. So I do not have any underage children anymore. They are almost out of my home.
Wow. That's awesome.
That is incredible. It you blink. All right.
Fast,
so
it goes fast. I will always tell people this. Some days you get home from work and you're just dog tired, and the kids want to play. Go play with the kids, because that time goes by so fast, and it gets to a certain point where they get a little too old and they don't want to play with dad anymore. So spend as much time as you can, create as many memories as you can. But even if you're tired, sometimes all they need is 10 minutes.
Right.
Sometimes that's all they need is 10 minutes of your time, and they're content. So it doesn't matter how tired you are. Just go play with the kids.
Yeah. I don't know whoever said this phrase. I've always, the first time I heard it, it just makes so much sense, especially as a father. The days are long and the years are short, and there's so much truth in that.
Yeah.
All right. So on a much, much brighter note, this is going to be my favorite part maybe of this episode here. And hey, to our audience, this episode's an outlier. I'm going to try to explain any inside joke and really make sure y'all are part of the journey. But Bruce and Troy, we were together. The 3 of us were together for 2 years, and then Troy and Bruce were together for many years beyond that. But so let's share a couple of recollections here. So Troy, the first one, and Bruce, I'm hoping that you can remember this too, but we put on a bass talent show, Troy.
Yes, I do remember.
All right. So I don't remember. I know what we called. I think we were calling it a Lubu production, right? We were already thinking like a production team, of course, tongue in cheek. But I don't know if I ever told you this, and I'm so glad that I either chickened out or maybe we had too many skits already. But a few nights before the bass talent show, I was laying in my bed in the dorm, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do a stand-up comedy routine. And I was writing down some jokes, and I was chuckling to myself, oh, that's funny. I might kill it. And then I saw what I wrote down a day or two later, and either I chickened out or I didn't have the guts to get added. And I'm so glad, because that would have been a really bad experience. But
well, Scott, it would have been a bad experience depending on what side you're on. It might have been the greatest thing to me.
Well, get this. So let me share one more thing, because this, when I think about how it would have gone, y'all remember I went to Kuwait, and I was stationed in Al Jabbar for about 45 days.
I remember it.
If you remember, we used to, we talked about movies all the time, and of course all of it, Rocky movies and the Clubber Lang. I think it was Rocky 2. There's a scene where he says, I'm tired of old jibba jabba, and like that press conference, right? So I'm gonna tell myself here, but when we were in Kuwait, as we were leaving, they were calling each of us up, and they were giving us that the medal for being part of whatever Desert Shield or something, or not the Desert.
Oh,
Shield.
the Expeditionary.
Yeah.
Expeditionary or something.
And we had a full board colonel. I don't remember his name. I'm ashamed to say, but he made each of us come up in front of the 100 people there and say one thing in a microphone. He had to say something. And I chose to make a play on the name of the base. And in my worst Clubber-Lang voice say, "Colonel, I'm tired of your jibber jabber," you could have heard a pin drop in that auditorium. I walked back with my tail tucked between my legs back to my seat, and it was the dumbest, stupidest inside joke, I guess, that no one else got. I felt so bad. I went up to the colonel afterwards and apologized and shook his hand, make sure he knew I wasn't making fun of him. But anyway, we had a lot of good times. So that base talent show was one. The other thing,
man.
so pranks. We loved good pranks.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So when you hear that, what's the first couple that come to mind? Would
you mind if I go first on this one? Because this cracks me up to this day. Is whenever I think it was a football game that Scott really wanted to get to, and his only mode of transportation was Troy. And so I lived on base, and I remember Troy's car going by because Scott was going to come by and watch the game at my house, and and so here comes Troy and Scott coming down the road, and Scott wasn't going to say something that Troy told him to. I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it was fake Carolina. Where are you from?
Yeah, he had to call South Carolina the fake Carolina.
Had to call South Carolina. He goes, I ain't going to do it. Then all of a sudden the car goes speeding off. About 5 minutes later, that car comes back up my street again. It's like, where are you from? And eventually I heard fake Carolina. The game's going to start. So, and then Troy goes, hey, and anytime you want, you tell him to make an animal noise and he'll make it.
That was the base tour.
Yes, the base tours. I tried to,
you took him out on the base tour.
I tried to open that door, but man, Troy was quick on that gas pedal. He had those instincts down. So the base tour was an infamous one. And what there's so many. I'm trying to choose what we want to put out there in the public realm and what we want to keep kind of behind closed doors. But you had to during those days there was a lot of pressure at times based on reporting or data or challenges. Certainly with the 9/11 overhanging part of our time there in Wichita. I mean, you had to, just like in a year like 2020, you had to really, it was important to maintain that sense of humor and lighten things up at times, right?
Yeah, of course.
Oh yeah.
You have to, man, or else you'll sit back and be depressed, or the pressure will get to you, or you got to keep it light.
Yes.
And we kept laughing.
Yeah, we had
hard times notwithstanding. We always found something to laugh about.
Yeah.
Always.
Agreed. And so one other, and I won't go too deep here, but Bruce, if you remember, both of y'all remember when there was a tornado that came through Hoisington, Kansas, and we put together a little team to go up to help out the day or two after. And the Air Force couldn't get behind it because of separation between federal and whatever that jurisdiction is. But so it had to be kind of all volunteers, and Air Force couldn't get behind it. So all we could do is very informally put an effort together. And so we had a bunch of calls coming into the office. And so I was getting the messages and calling them right back without thinking about anything. So Bruce hands me a message as I came back from a bathroom or something. And it said Airman Pap, and it said extension 4512 on it. And I took it from him. I'm like, great, I got one more volunteer. We got a list of about 25, and I was going to sign them up right there. So, I love getting those calls because that was one more to the effort.
Yeah.
I dial that 4512, and they pick up, and I completely didn't even listen to the office I was dialed into. I said, this is Airman Luton returning Airman Pap's phone call. And they go, excuse me. And I said, yeah, I just got this message that an Airman Pap called me because I'm coordinating such and such. They go, Airman Luton, This is the OBGYN here at McConnell Air Force Base. We don't have an airman. And I'm a bit thick-headed. I get it naturally, probably, but I didn't dawn on me until I cut my eyes over, and both of y'all, especially Bruce, he's red because he has just doubled over. Just dying laughing. And I've told that story to some, I'm sure my in-laws in particular around a good campfire is tired of hearing that anecdote, but it is just such a funny moment from our time together.
You made it special, Scott.
Yeah, man. That's a good
You turned it from mundane to like, that was hilarious.
The time.
It's all about you, Babel.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was that, Bruce?
It's all about you, Babel. That was a Troy D. Boozer.
Yes.
I love it.
All right. Well, so before we move, let's see here. I've already thanked you both, and that came from a very genuine spot. I mean, we're sharing some of the things that made it enjoyable, but the friendships and the fellowship and the support that both y'all in particular, not just me, but the rest of the office. You know, I bet if we had Wong here and several and certainly McCall here and others, they'd probably say the same thing. I mean, y'all really were important supporting figures there on that team. So anything else about your time there or that office or those people or any of those experiences, that anything else you want to share before we move on?
I enjoyed it. I told people at the time, I told them it doesn't matter where you go or what you do, you'll never have another environment like this. And I believed it then. I definitely believe it now. We just had a really good mix of people there, good mix of personalities. A lot of people like to have fun with us. Sometimes when people didn't want to have fun, kind of drug them along to have fun anyway. I really do believe in that squadron. We definitely had the best office in that squadron by far. We got the work done, but we just had fun doing it. So, that's what I would have to say. Just a really good bunch of people, really good bunch of people. So.
Well, I'm going to say this real quick, though. Do you remember one way we would pass time was playing Stump the Dummy?
So you got to explain.
Never get you. What's that?
How did that work?
Well, you had to start off with like a movie or an actor, actress, something, and you had to connect the two with only so many steps, and nobody could stump Troy D. Boozer. I tried. I come up with the most obscure references, and I've never known anybody more versed in movies and actors and actresses than Troy was.
And I'm terrible at it now. I'm terrible at it now. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. Stump the Dummy. That's a lot of fun.
Gosh, where to go from here? So much else. Troy, our weekend golf games, we didn't get to play every week. At least I didn't get to play every weekend, but the group there, some of the conversations that followed and some of the experiences that followed, just a great bunch. And Bruce, if you remember, we went to, I think you and I went to a Chiefs game at Arrowhead. I don't know who went or why, how exactly went. And then we also went to, I think, to your dad's home in Colorado for a long weekend.
Yes, on both points. It was that was the only game that I went with my dad to a football game.
Really?
NFL, and it was Broncos against the Chiefs.
Yes.
And Dad had the spare ticket. It's like, well, Scott will probably go to that. And
if Troy will let me. Oh boy. All right.
That
Well,
was a blast.
it really was. And I'll tell you, if you've never been to Arrowhead Stadium, just an incredible, especially for that game, that rivalry, that was, man, it's palpable, that environment. And then of course, Troy, squadron softball.
A lot of fun.
You played on the base basketball team. I want to say we had a bowling team and squadron intramurals or something. I know we did a sports day, but gosh, those were back then. No kids, you could be selfish after work. At least I could. That was a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
But good stuff. All right. So let's talk about transition. If we hear anything through the conversations we have here at Veteran Voices, it is these transition stories, and all of them, while some of them have common threads in terms of challenges or journey, the different aspects of the journey, each of them are also can be real unique. So Bruce, let's talk about yours first. So you mentioned you retired April 1st, 2003, I believe. So
yes.
What did that transition, what did it look like for you, and when did you land your first job? Was it transition harder or easier? Tell us about it.
Oh man, that was I tell you what, that was something. So the transition was tough because I enlisted when I was 17. I got out at 37, and I didn't know any other life really than the military. And we moved into a house that was bad, so we had to get out of there a lot sooner than we anticipated. We moved up here to Indiana with Andrea's folks for a month and a half, but about 5 years before I retired, I was taking college. I knew a direction I wanted to go for my career, and it was going to be for either a physician or physician assistant. So we were working in that direction, and we had it narrowed down to two places we're going to live. Is either going to be Maine, and that's the place we're gunning for, or it's going to be South Carolina. And Andre and I prayed hard. It's like God, we're thick. We're not observant. We said, you got to make it clear to us where we're supposed to go. And the funny thing is, every single door in Maine was shut. There was not one open door. And we went to South Carolina, and within a day and a half, Andrea had a job. We had an apartment. I had a program that I was going to go to, which was the nurse practitioner program over there at the university. And so every door was open there, and that's where we went. It was tough. One of the hardest things I had to overcome was I wanted to grow my hair out, and I wanted it to touch my ears, and I didn't care about 3510 anymore. But it started to grow out, and I just looked like a desperate old guy. I was in nursing school. There was 45 like 22-year-old women there, and then I'm in there at about 40. And so that was tough. But some of the other hurdles was I didn't know what was afforded me as a veteran, or as what options were there. And the transition assistance program, the TAPS, it might have covered some of that, but you don't retain a lot of it.
Right.
And so we struggled a bit. We struggled. Do you want me to stop there as far as transition goes, or?
Well, what was for you? What was the most? You've already kind of talked about how it's a culture shock because from 1737 you were in the Air Force. You knew that structure and that military and the that environment. But other than that kind of shock to the system of transition into the private sector, what else made it so challenging?
It was the military. There's a hierarchy. There's a chain of command. You follow it. You do what you're told. And then when I got out, that didn't exist. It's like everything I grew up in, all the structure that I was used to was gone. And you had people challenging other people. There's no chain of command. I'm going to go straight from here to the very top and, destroy everybody in the middle. So, and the other thing was I went straight into full-time school. And like I said, we when I retired, I had 4 kids. We had 3 more while I was in school, and then 1 more after that. And just trying to raise the family, make ends meet. See, it took me that long to become like Troy was whenever he first enlisted. It took me 20 years to become like him. It's like, I got a family to take care of. I got children here that are relying on. I got to make a living somehow.
Wow.
And the funny thing is, whenever I was when I was retiring, Andre's like, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I thought about it, and I'm either going to be a cabinet maker, I'm going to be a postal office worker, or I'm going to be a marine biologist."
Is that a reference to Seinfeld? That's what Costanza would tell people he was at times. And then that whale got beached. And someone goes,
I remember that.
"Is there a marine biologist in the crowd?" And everybody looks back at him. He's got no idea what to do except look in the blowhole. That's where he sees Kramer's golf ball. Oh, what a show. What a show. So you became a nurse practitioner. Is that right, Bruce?
Yes.
Okay, wow.
Came a nurse practitioner for adults and geriatrics. Got my first job here in Indiana. I couldn't find anyone there in Charleston until after I left, and then I had like several offers. But I started off as a hospitalist, nighttime hospitalist for a year, and I was waiting to get into the VA. Well, position opened up, so I went into outpatient clinic provider for about 4 years, but my passion was the wound clinic, which is where I work now. I've been there for about 4 years at the VA wound clinic. There's a good bunch of people there as well. A lot of challenges, but the vets, I understand the vets. I understand their language, the experiences. So there's a common bond there that is hard to find. So like you, Scott, and Troy, it's went right back and serving those who serve and have served.
Yeah.
So that reminds me, and Troy, I'm gonna come to you next, and then after we talk about Troy's transition, we'll get advice from both of you to our current vets that may be transitioning on their own. But Lornette Vestal came on, and Lornette was a Navy veteran. He came on a few shows back, and he really, I was ashamed I hadn't picked up on this long ago, but he made a great point about how veterans, when they take their uniform off, whether they separate or retire, what have you, so many of them keep serving and keep giving back. And it's just it's part of the DNA of so many of our veteran community. And it really, you both are still doing it. And that just continue. Once he made that point to me, then you start looking for it. Right. And it's just come up and been so visible in so many conversations and occasions since. And that is we need leaders to give back, and whether you're taking care of the veteran community or you're taking care of your fellow man and woman, or you're giving back to your community, we need so much of that. And both of y'all do that in spades. What about, so Troy, let's talk about your transition a bit. What was that like? Was it more or less challenging? And how did it go? What was your first job out?
So it was, there's a bit of a challenge there. It wasn't too bad, at least for me. Kind of like Bruce was, God really showed us the way. So we it was so funny, man, because there was a lot that really could have gone wrong, and just certain things that we just didn't see. Coming from the military, I didn't join the military until I was 22. So I had a little bit of exposure to, very little exposure to, working outside the military. So once I first got here, took a little bit. The first job that I got, it was very frustrating because it was beneath my skill set. So that was the difficult part of it. And I was looking at the stuff they wanted me to do, and I'm like, this is all you want me to do, and that part was tough. I eventually ended up getting into the banking system because I'm here in the Charlotte area, and that's just what, it's a banking, banking city, and a lot of the jobs revolve around the banking system and all this kind of stuff. So I think the first job I got was with Wells Fargo. They hired me as an analyst, so I was excited, going to be an analyst. And, they sat me down with these reports and they said, look, you really got to analyze these reports. You have to make sure everything is capitalized and the punctuation is right. And I'm thinking to myself, that's proofreading. That's not really analysis, but that's what you're going to pay me for. Then I guess I, go with that. But it wasn't until I caught on with Bank of America to where my skill set was really, really challenged. And but it took a couple of years for me to get to that point. But most of my transition was frustrating simply because I had amassed a certain skill set, and that skill set wasn't being used at all. So I think that was the biggest frustration that I had.
Yeah, for a long time there in the post 9/11 era, veteran joblessness was a big challenge, unemployment completely. And it's been neat to see corporate America get real serious with some action behind it to not only hire veterans but veteran spouses. However, what has continued to linger is what you're describing, Troy, is the underemployment. The underemployment is such and there's a variety of reasons for it, I'm sure. So many non-veterans, we don't understand terminology or experiences, or if you can't quite figure out where they'd fit in, you shy away, and so you don't make the offer, or you put them in maybe a position a couple rungs down from where they should be. We interviewed a combat veteran a few weeks ago. He Staff Sergeant Army, 2 tours, 1 Iran, 1 Afghanistan, Purple Star and Bronze Star recipient. And the only job he could get when he got back, after even applying to fast food, you name it, he applied everywhere, was on his first day of showing up at this nonprofit, they assigned him to watch kids in a bouncy house. And for him, that was that eureka moment where, I led men and women in combat, making life or death situations, managing millions of dollars of equipment, in high stress situations. And I come back here and not only do this, but it's like starting all over again after you've already proved yourself in uniform. So that challenge is real, and hopefully through these conversations, more folks are becoming aware of that. So Troy, so in the banking industry was your first job out of the Air Force, is that right?
No, I actually worked for a different company that did a lot of provisioning for, mailing supplies and stuff like that. So that was my first job.
All right. So, and we'll touch on what you're doing now, a couple different ways here right before we close. But I want to, both of y'all, if you would, when you think about that transition, and if you could have the opportunity to speak directly to, veterans, whether they, have maybe the military is all they know and they're getting ready. Maybe they're approaching their terminal leave, or maybe they're already started out and they're experiencing some of the challenges that the three of us have been speaking to. What's some advice? And Troy, let's stay with you here. What's a couple pieces of advice that you'd give veterans that are making that transition?
So number one, I would say narrow your focus. Get you some options, but don't be so broad in your options. Kind of know what you want to do. Have a good idea of what you want to do, and definitely know what you don't want to do. I would say make sure you have options. And what Bruce was saying about the TAPS, I thought the TAPS system was kind of too broad. So it doesn't help as much as most would think it does. It's just, and it's really not geared to be able to be specific enough. But for guys that are getting out, narrow your focus, do a lot of research, know what it is that you need, because a lot of these jobs that you might want really only need you to have a certification as opposed to having a 4-year degree, especially nowadays. So if it requires a certification, put yourself in a position to be successful just by narrowing your focus a bit.
Wow. Bruce, just like the sage advisor that Troy was when we were on active duty with him back in Wichita, right? This is the trusted counsel. Seriously, I'm having flashbacks. So Bruce, same question, and that's a sincere compliment, Troy. That's the person you are. Same question to you, Bruce. You know, if you had the opportunity to help those that are facing their transition, what's some advice you'd have?
I'd say one is it's good if you have a support system, people that you can listen to, take in wisdom and advice. For me, that was my wife Andrea, and I have to give the glory to Christ though, because no matter where I walked, I never walked alone, and no matter what I did, if I failed, he was there and he picked me back up. And my wife Andrea gave me so much guidance and wisdom, and she really helped me realize my full potential, I believe. And the thing is, have a good support system. And the other one is to know some of your resources. One thing I had no idea about was the VA. And, I know I had a bad rap initially back in like 70s and 80s and whatnot, but I didn't know a thing about it. And there's a lot of veterans that come in there that didn't know anything about the VA, but there's so many resources available there. There was a Vietnam vet. He was in theater, I think, twice. Diabetes and a bunch of other health issues that he had. 0% service connected. I was like, you got to be kidding me. So sit down and then talked with him a little bit, told him what he needs to go do. And he came back and he finally got service connected, 75% for diabetes exposure to Agent Orange.
Wow.
Wow.
And there's, whenever I got out, I went to Voc Rehab with a disability, 30% or more. You can qualify for that. And they really helped me out. Like I said, I tried to get out of the analysis field, but other than being a postal worker, I didn't know how to do that, but they really helped me see that. It just, as far as that, really the sky's the limit. And I had one vet, he went into Voc Rehab and he was making biker jewelry, and they helped him realize that. And many, many other successful stories of people who didn't know what to do, but once they got hooked up to that source, as a veteran, there's a lot that is afforded to you. So if you don't know where else to go, just start looking at the VA, because they are connected to a bunch of other agencies that can help veterans out, find employment, to find a career, to change careers. So support and knowing your resources and using them.
Yeah, that's right. And if I could just add to what y'all both have shared, because it keeps coming up and coming up and coming up. Hey, if you need help, raise your hand. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
Get the help when you need it. Don't wait and let the bad things happen. Find good people like these two people, or go find a VA. But make sure you let folks know you need help. All right. So Troy, I'm real excited. I've had the opportunity through phone calls of catching up through the years to track some of your extracurricular activities, and I might be more excited than you are about what you're doing now. So tell us with Living Waters World Ministries, what's this journey you're on?
So we started this, I want to say back in 2008. Got a call the ministry. I knew I was supposed to be in ministry from the time I was like 8. Just kind of ran from it for a while. Kind of steered away from it for a while, but eventually you got to come back to it. And we started with conference calls, men's conference calls, and it kind of just went from there until full-blown ministry. So what Living Waters really stands for, what we really do, we're not a church. We're a training facility, and we train on various aspects of ministry. We specialize in discipleship because we saw that was a need in the body. We have great church services. We have great speakers. We have a lot of people that can draw other people, but what we lack is discipleship. So we're here to fill that gap. So we have a lot of different classes. We have a lot of conferences. We have a lot of, Zoom calls just like this. We do a Bible study every Tuesday night on a Zoom call. We actually have a lot going on. So my wife and I are really big in discipleship. We're really big into, different things like that, and seeing people grow spiritually, spiritually mature, as opposed to just kind of sitting in a church service, just kind of hanging out and doing your part. We actually want to empower people to do exactly what it is God has called them to do. So that's really what, the nuts and bolts of Living Martyrs World Ministry.
Love that. And if I'm not mistaken, and I don't want to give up any plans, but one of these this next phase is a campus is in the future, right?
Yes, sir. So we're in the process now of looking for about 25 acres of land. We're going to build a facility there. We're actually going to have a pastor's retreat on the facility. So a lot of times when church leadership, they get kind of tired and worn out, we give them a place to come where they can just hang out. This will make you happy, Scott. It will have a fishing pond on it. I know you remember the fishing story. It will have a fishing pond on it. We're kind of looking for that and seeing exactly where God wants us to place that. And so we've been on the hunt for about 25 acres. That's the minimum. If I could get about 30 to 35 acres, that would be great.
Awesome.
Wow,
It's
that's
right
awesome.
around, it is. It really is, and it's right around the corner. And I couldn't think of a better leader building out what you're doing. Hey, I mean that really from a very genuine spot. We've seen you in action formally, and we've seen you in action when you weren't necessarily fit in your formal role, right? And serving others, and it's part of who you are. So I'm excited about that, and we'll bring you back on really soon to check up on the journey. So Bruce, you've kind of shared a little about what you do now and about your family, but what's next? Anything that you are working towards? Do you plan on being in Indianapolis for, is that where you are going to settle down? You think for the long haul?
No. Right now with the kids, we have Andrea's mom to consider in her health. She just lost her dad here last year. I have my son's in the Air Force. He's carrying on the family business, and we have a couple of them that are coming up. One's 17. She's getting ready to graduate. She's in her junior year right now. So at least to provide some stability there. But I think our heart is to go back to South Carolina, or as Troy called it, fake Carolina. And we have some friends there, and I don't know why I did not think about this, but they live in Waxhaw. They're attached to Wycliffe Ministries there, and we go there every so often to hook up with them. But man alive, if I'd have been thinking, I should have given you a shout there, Troy.
Waxhaw's not far from me at all.
No. Whenever it's like, I don't know why I didn't think about that. It'd be awesome to sit down and just see you again.
Yeah.
But eventually, I'm 55 now. I got about 10 years before I'm like done. But I think eventually we're going to head back to South Carolina.
Well, you can call me too, right?
Oh, absolutely. I do.
No, I've been trying to explain to people, Bruce, since the day you looked at me and said, Scott, I figured out what you remind me of now. You're a perfect mix between Kurt Russell and the Chicken Hawk. And as I've shared that with folks through the years, a couple of them have looked at me really hard and said, I know exactly what Bruce Gillen was talking about. So, you forgot about that. I knew I figured you had. Well, guys, this is really, I wish everyone cared about our stories as much as I do. And we do a 5-hour episode, but I really admire both of you. And that comes from the most genuine spot. I admire what you do, the people you are. EG is getting dressed. Looks like y'all got some fans at home as well. But man, we need more people like Bruce Gillen and Troy Boozer, and the country be better off, the world be better off. And I can't tell y'all how much I am grateful that for 2 years of my life, I got to hang out with y'all every day and bounce my own issues off of y'all and get guidance and whatnot. So you're great people. Thanks so much for joining us here. Let's make sure though, how can folks, Troy, especially for you, as your business continues to grow, how can folks connect with you if they've got any questions about your organization?
So you can check us out. I mean, we're on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. But best place to find us is you can go to h20live.org. And if you want to connect with us in any other way, you can reach us at info@h20live.org. And we're pretty responsive to the emails. We get to them fairly quickly and reply back to them. So if you want to know what we're about, what we believe and all that kind of stuff, you go to the website. And if you had any other questions, you can shoot us an email and we'll get back to you.
Outstanding. And Troy, you and I both know the answer to the question I'm going to ask Bruce about how to get in touch with him. Good luck. Good luck is the response. But Bruce, if folks do have any questions about what you've learned or the VA or anything, you can direct them my way, and I can judiciously share those with you if that's probably the best approach.
I can give you my email address over there at the VA.
Go right ahead.
Since I spend so much time there, it's bruce.gillen, Gillen, at va.gov. And I just let you know, I am a card carrying introvert, and if I make more than so many reach outs per year, I lose my card.
I love it.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. And hey, Troy and Bruce, a pleasure, man. So awesome. We're going to have to do this again. We're going to have to grab in Holland and Ryan, Terrence and Claudel, and really, and maybe we don't record the next one, but it would be such a fun time. All right. Well, thanks so much to both of you, Troy Boozer and Bruce Gillen, and to our audience. Hey, thanks for sticking with us this far. This was really special for me, and these are two special people to me and in my journey, and I've learned so much from these individuals, and hopefully you've picked up on some of what they had to share. A lot of life lessons there. So, hey, on behalf of our entire team here at Veteran Voices, check us out, subscribe for free wherever you get your podcast from. Hey, if you're a veteran and you got a story to share, or experiences, or your transition story, reach out. We're everywhere across social, Twitter, whatever Instagram is, I don't know, LinkedIn, you name it, reach out. We'll get back to you. We'd love to feature and spotlight your story here. And on behalf of our entire team, Scott Luton signing off here, challenging you the same way we challenge our team. Hey, do good, give forward, be the change that's needed. And on that note, in fact, be like Bruce Gillen and Troy Boozer. And on that note, we'll see you next time here on Veteran Voices. Thanks, everybody.